According to scientific prognoses, dinosaurs disappeared from the face of the Earth about 66 million years ago. What if they were mistaken and it's just the majority that died out? Let's find out. In this episode, you'll see living dinosaurs that were caught on camera. Well, let's start with this curious footage that, according to the author's comments, captured a real velociraptor. The video was taken in 2023 by a night surveillance camera installed on one of the roads near the forest. The people who switched on this camera did not even expect to catch something so amazing. Their plan was to record rare animal species. And, you know, in a way, they got exactly what they wanted. A velociraptor, or something very much like it, appeared to the lens for just a few seconds and then disappeared. There's no other evidence other than the footage. They're curious news. This video has been checked numerous times for tampering, and it successfully passed every possible test. So what does come out of it? Velociraptors and perhaps some other prehistoric creatures are still alive? But why haven't we noticed them before? How did or do they manage to hide from us? Alas, no scientist has yet been able to answer these questions. In any case, I suggest that we find out who they are, these velociraptors. Maybe they're not so scary after all. According to films like Jurassic Park, you would think that they're extremely agile and fast creatures, gregarious predators that weigh about 450 pounds. They're also highly intelligent and have insanely strong armor. However, this was not the case in reality. And I'm not talking about the velociraptor that was caught in the lens in 2023. I'm talking about the dinosaurs that lived in the past. According to the data obtained during the study of their remains, they were very small lizards, reaching no more than 2.5 feet in height and weighing about 33 to 44 pounds. Like most theropods, Velociraptor had 4 toes on its hind limbs, with one underdeveloped and not involved in walking. Yes, the second toe had a rather powerful claw. According to analyses, even this was not used as a weapon by Velociraptor. Most likely it was something like a hook. With its help, our ancient guest clung to its victim and held it. In terms of intelligence, everything was also much more meager than we were shown in the film. Here's the last, most significant difference that was kept a secret for some reason. Velociraptors were covered not with some super strong armor, but with ordinary feathers. Together with the warm-bloodedness inherent in these creatures, such a cover provided fluffy dinosaurs with a unique ability. They didn't depend on the temperature or the environment. That's why our fighting roosters were running around the fields and forests all day and night. Given all this, it's likely that it wasn't a velociraptor in our video. Either it's a different, equally mysterious dinosaur, or it's still a well-assembled fake that managed to pass all the tests. In the next video, the creature looks a lot more like a velociraptor. Yes, it's still impossible to tell whether it's protected by feathers or skin, but its size is much closer to the real thing. By the way, this dinosaur ran not in the forest or even in some abandoned area, but right in the yard of a resident of the United States. Just imagine the face of the owner. She looks at the footage and sees this. No wonder that the girl immediately ran to the experts and began to beg them to look at these images. And after all, the owner of the house is clearly not crazy. She really witnessed something particularly strange. The footage looks realistic. Even more so, other Florida residents also spoke of a strange little creature hiding in the bushes that night. Who exactly it was, alas, we'll never know. But something tells me it could really be a surviving dinosaur. No matter how we look at it, science doesn't know of any modern creatures with a similar body structure. Golf player. No, we didn't change the theme of the episode. With these short words, I wanted to describe this huge monster that was filmed right on the golf course in 2018. It was again in Florida, and everyone who was there at that moment immediately became speechless. And really, how else were people supposed to react to an encounter with such a giant? At first glance, this crocodile was much larger than any modern crocodile. The same saltwater crocodiles, considered the largest in modern times, grow up to about 16 to 20 feet in length and weigh up to a ton. This monster, correct me if I'm wrong, was clearly larger. It definitely weighed over a ton, maybe even over 2 tons, and I believe the monster was over 20 feet long. Alas, no comments on this situation were posted on the web. So you and I'll have to limit ourselves to our own opinion. Write in the comments what you think about this giant. Could it be a real living fossil? Is it a fake? Or perhaps an overgrown saltwater crocodile? By the way, while you're writing, I'll tell you a little bit more about modern giants. Saltwater crocodiles are potentially considered to have the strongest bite in the world. The calculated force of compression of the jaws of a large male crocodile, weighing 2,880 pounds, is from 27,000 newtons to 34,000 newtons. It's equivalent to the force of gravity of 6,000 to 7,700 pounds. The only ones who could compete with them are orcas or sperm whales, but that's not certain yet. It's a pity that people didn't have time to test the capabilities of Lolong, the largest of the saltwater crocodiles. The legendary animal passed away in 2013. When caught, this crocodile broke steel cables with a breaking strength of 6 to 12 tons 4 times, and it took the efforts of about 100 people and a whole night of long struggle to pull Lolong out of the water. This reptile was so rugged and unruly that it was repeatedly suspected of killing fishermen and large numbers of cattle. You know, I think I found another member of the animal kingdom that would be capable of this. It's the Triceratops from our next video. Yes, I know these plant-eating dinosaurs got extinct over 60 million years ago. Just take a look at this video. The ancient monster is easily recognizable by its distinctive appearance: a large, bony collar, 3 horns on its snout, large, thick limbs, and a rhinoceros-like build. It's probably one of the strongest dinosaurs of its time that were in front of the people who tried their best to contain the monster. This video clip quickly went viral on the internet. Everyone was discussing the video, coming up with their own theories about the validity of the footage. I don't know what you think about it. As much as I'd like to believe it, I somehow can't. It seems to me that it's either computer graphics that were used here or some expensive costume with several trained people in it at once. I just don't believe that this wild ancient monster could break free from humans. Okay, let's leave that video in the past and move on to a new but no less exciting one. This time the action takes place in the state of Oregon. A man heard strange noises coming from the side of a farm. Interest took over, and the man came to make sure of everything personally. However, what he saw there surpassed all his expectations. A real Tyrannosaurus Rex appeared in front of the poor man, the same ancient monster that you've seen in films many times. If you believe historians, it lived from 66 to 70 million years ago. It inhabited the western part of North Africa, and it was the most common of tyrannosaurids. Tyrannosaur fossil remains are still found in various geological formations. What was captured in this video exceeded all expectations. The beast leapt out from around the corner and began to sweep everything in its path. Only a miracle helped the author of the video, as the Tyrannosaurus decided not to touch his car and went on exploring the area. According to the comments of an eyewitness, the security service received a lot of calls the day with comments about the dinosaur. The United States deployed all of its forces and managed to defeat it. Alas, they decided not to publish the story, probably in order not to cause panic in society. Nevertheless, the military and scientists worked with the body of Tyrannosaurus. Perhaps it will have a positive impact on the study of nature and history in general. Whatever the case, the monster was one of the last non-bird dinosaurs that existed before the cataclysm that ended the Mesozoic era. And if this footage is real at all, it would appear that the dinosaurs are not extinct, but they're still hiding in some secluded place. And while we're looking at the T-Rex, why don't we remember what it was like in the past? Despite its intimidating size, the big guy could hardly run more than 18 miles an hour. For the record, even a trained human could outrun him. But although our guest was not fast, it had other useful features in its arsenal, and a lightweight skeleton was the first of them. At 43 feet long, the body of Tyrannosaurus Rex weighed about 8 to 9 tons. Another feature of our guest was its amazing sense of smell. The entire family that Tyrannosaurus belonged to had the best sense of smell in the history of the Mesozoic. This is indirectly confirmed by the large olfactory bulbs. A developed sense of smell allowed our hero not to chase after wounded prey, but to pursue it along the bloody trail. By the way, this contradicts our video with the man calmly hiding from the monster under the car. If that video turned out to be real, the Tyrannosaur would have definitely overturned the car and eaten the brazen man with the camera. Parasaurolophus. That's the name of a genus of extinct dinosaurs, with its member being recently captured in this video. Yes, I realize I've just said some incongruous things, but it's true. The genus itself is considered extinct, ask any scientist you know. However, this video that was filmed in 2022 showed people holding a real and, most importantly, alive dinosaur in their arms. According to the data that we have from open sources, these creatures were very large. They could grow over 36 feet in length. That suggests that the individual in the video was very young. Now, let's move on. If it's still young, it must have been born very recently. If that's true, then it must not have been conceived very long ago either. So it's very likely that this dinosaur's parents are still on the Earth. But given the colossal size, no one knows where they're hiding. Specialists in the video preferred to keep the details of the discovery in secret, apparently not to give a chance of success to their colleagues. If this video turns out to be real, very soon the world will turn upside down and history will have to be rewritten. Do you think this footage could be authentic? Write in the comments. In fact, amazing discoveries happen quite often, and not always on land. Another time, the ancient monster happens to be filmed underwater at a really great depth. The video that you can see in front of you was taken in May 2022. A team of researchers has captured the real Hoffman's Mosaurus. At least, that's what the silhouette of this monster most closely resembles. You know, if findings on land are still questionable, then monsters hiding underwater don't seem impossible to me, personally. No matter how you look at it, we haven't even studied the world's oceans, and there's still a lot of discoveries ahead of us. And what if living dinosaurs lurking somewhere at the bottom are one of them? Hoffman's Mosaurus is one of the latest members of the Mosasaur family that scientists believe is long extinct. For its time, it was one of the most advanced representatives of the family. This is because many of its anatomical features were atypical and strongly distinguished it from other mosasaurs. The exact dimensions of this creature cannot be talked about either. Its jaw alone, found in Russia, was over 4.9 feet long. According to experts, Hoffman's Mosasaurus could grow from 42 feet to 56 feet and weigh up to 27 tons. What such a majestic predator is capable of is frightening to think about, especially if he lives in our time. Stroll. That's exactly what the man in the following video was doing when suddenly he encountered a real Baryonyx, a member of the Lower Cretaceous predatory dinosaur family. This predator inhabited the territory of Europe. It had a narrow face, a small skull, and according to experts, it was poorly adapted to the environment. Large prey was out of its reach. Although, on the other hand, who's to say it wasn't? It had quite a few teeth with a series of serrations. This indicates it was partially fish-eating and committed to hunting small land animals. Baryonyx had huge sickle-shaped claws on its forelimbs. The largest of these were over 12 inches long. Obviously, if our video was real, a man wouldn't stand a chance in a battle with this monster, and he was very lucky that the monster turned around at the last moment. And this footage was taken in Pennsylvania. People were standing in a traffic jam. There was a thick fog outside the window. The atmosphere looked dull and sleepy. But suddenly, as if at the snap of fingers, everything changed. Car headlights illuminated real Gallimimus dinosaurs running against traffic. There are at least several of these omnivorous dinosaurs. Alas, nobody managed to catch up with them, and even more so to shoot them in a better angle. As far as I'm concerned, these shots are already enough to puzzle scientists. At least, it looks very realistic. Catch-ups. In the minds of many, this is the name of an old but fun game. What's happening on the video characterizes it in a completely different way in every sense of the word. The video shows a little girl crying and running away from 3 Compsognathus dinosaurs at once. These small creatures lived over 145 million years ago, and it's defined by logic how they got here. These tiny organisms, according to the remains, had 68 sharp teeth. So if I were the author, I would make a video, but I'd rather help the girl to stay safe and sound. Compsognathus had long hind limbs and an even longer tail used to balance itself while moving. For this reason, no matter how well the little girl may have run, she was unlikely to be able to get away from them on her own without using stealth. The Chernobyl nuclear plant disaster took place almost 40 years ago, but the territory is contaminated by radiation until now. What animals and mutants can we meet there today? I'll tell you about this now. Some time ago, a shot made its way to the internet, caught not far away from the exploded reactor. The author states that he came across the body of a dead creature, which had grown up to abnormal sizes and mutated. It was supposedly a millipede under the influence of radiation, as well as infected local soil. It's not known if this is true or not. I just share the information with you, as it seems to me these creatures may well inhabit the infected area. It's no big deal. For example, several years ago, it became clear that the Chernobyl NPP accident changed the way some quite habitual to us animals look like, including the big-hoofed animals. These shots show an animal running along the exclusion zone in the region of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, NPP. Have you already noticed how strange it is? The animal had something wrong with its head. It either lacks at all, or because of mutation, the animal is short of neck and its head grows right from its body. By the way, it's not quite clear who it is, either a moose or a deer. There's a consensus of opinion that it's a moose. Some may think this beast is unreal. Agnostics can oppose that a creature isn't able to live without a head, but I would argue about that. After all, history knows a lot of animals capable of surviving without a head, from hens and snakes to flies and cockroaches. If that moose was subject to mutations, as well as its parents and more remote ancestors from the same population, it's quite possible that it learned how to do so without a head. As a possible version, its important organs were displaced to its body. The same can be said for its neck. In other words, its lack. If its head is in place with the lack of a neck, the animal could have adapted itself to this abnormality. After all, it's known that nature is good at adapting to even negative changes. There are also other versions. According to one of them, it was a hybrid between a deer and a rabbit, or between a horse and a cow that was caught on camera. A second version says that it was an unusual deer or moose, but without a trauma or undeveloped neck. In the case with Chernobyl, anything can happen. Superworm. What can we expect to take place in the eye of the storm if there are strange creatures even running around the streets of Chernobyl and Pripyat? What creatures can we encounter within the precincts of the plant? Now the plant is inspected on a regular basis. The works on the NPP's decommissioning and transformation of the fourth energy block destroyed in the result of the accident into an ecologically safe system. But in the initial years, everything was completely different. This shot I found on the internet was supposedly made in the 1990s. Scientists found such a strange, dreadful, and huge creature in the reactor. It's not known who it is. Anyway, one of the versions says that it was a mutant worm. It grew inside the buildings as if it were some cancerous tumor, taking up more and more space. All that remains is to hope that it was eliminated somehow and sealed forever in the closed space. There's no exact information concerning this megaworm. On the other hand, you don't have to doubt that Chernobyl mutant catfish exist. They inhabit a cooling pound of the Chernobyl NPP. Before the disaster, the locals frequently went fishing and caught fish from the Pripyat and other water bodies. However, this practice came to an end after the disaster. At the same time, not forever and not completely, we know that it's possible to come to Chernobyl. Some brave guys take their gears and come here for only one reason: to catch the legendary catfish. You have to say that they risk a lot. These fish can often reach huge sizes and even exceed human stature in length. What's the reason for? Why are they so long? Maybe it's about the radiation? Actually, no. Though initially it was supposed to be the case, scientists found out later that catfish possess an adaptive mechanism to extreme environmental conditions. This is what helps them survive. Catfish are provided with a protective function, DNA recovery. This way, those water giants are not mutants. This is how they're called just habitually. But yet, why are they so long? It's considered their diet is essential. Because of radiation, a predatory fish disappeared, which provided them with a bigger amount of food. In addition, they started to eat water and small birds. Intensified diet led to increases in size. By the way, the number of fishermen decreased. They catch less of their prey and catfish themselves. Finally, many tourists tried to feed these fish when they come here. As a result, already big catfish grew in size. They say these catfish can become even bigger in several decades. It's also said that they're so dangerous that they're able to plunge a fisherman into water and eat it. But these are thin stories, though maybe I'm mistaken. Mutant catfish may be the most famous animals in Chernobyl and Pripyat, but there are much less people knowing about the facts that new mutants have appeared recently. I say about frogs. How do you think their mutation is expressed? Maybe they developed new limbs? Or they became a dozen times bigger than their healthy brethren? Or did they turn to the most dangerous predators in the region? In fact, everything is not so dreadful and much simpler. It's all about their coloration. The Finnish scientists found out that because of the disaster, the frogs that used to be bright green changed their color to a very dark one. They found specimens that were almost completely black. According to their words, the frogs changed their color because of melanin pigment. The new coloration became a necessary measure of survival. The pigment lessened damaged DNA at the expense of radiation dispersion. Earlier, scientists had noticed the same effect in local mushrooms. Possibly in the future, they'll also find other atypical and strangely colored animals in this area. Radioactive fish. Those are not only the modern scientists who explore the local fauna in Chernobyl and its neighborhoods. They started to do that almost at once after the disaster. In the desolate and left buildings of Chernobyl, we may come across something creepy. In these shots, for example, we can see a group of tourists entering an old house. It looks chaotic, there's nothing interesting, but on the window stool there are glass jars with fish. Or those are not only fish. In fact, it's difficult to define what it really is. Personally, it seems to me that those were mutant fish in some jars, as if they developed limbs that shouldn't have been there. Possibly those were amphibians from the water bodies contaminated by radiation. Anyway, let it all stay in that place, sealed in jars. Who knows what these mutants are capable of, even so that they're already breathless. Everything is still ambiguous with those fish. Maybe it just seemed to me that they're mutants, and what I tell you is not true. But what do you think of this? Several years ago, a clip made its way to the web with this dreadful and strange creature. The video author said it's a piglet. The animal was exposed to radioactive mutation, because of which it's much different from the ordinary healthy piglets. The mutant even has a human face. On its deformed face, we can see a well-expressed nose, chin, and eyes, also resembling that of a human. The video author said that he came across that piglet in the neighborhoods of Chernobyl in a sewage. It's known that the Chernobyl sewage is still heavily contaminated by radiation, so that's not surprising. It's exactly there where this mutant came to being. But it's interesting who gave birth to it. Creepy mutant pig or an ordinary pig? And basically, who else can we find in these Chernobyl sewages? Seems to me real monsters dwell there. For example, such as those. Alright, in fact, this is another mutant piglet. Truly speaking, in this case, it was found not in the sewage. The cub came into the world on a farm shortly after the disaster on the plant. Back then, there were many similar mutants. It was not a rare occasion that creatures with twisted and deformed limbs, defected organs, and other features of this kind came to being. After all these stories and shots, it may seem that Chernobyl is inhabited by exclusively dreadful mutants that can attack a man, infect him, or at least impress him with their sizes and unusual appearance. In fact, it's not the case. Here you can find other animals as well. For example, butterflies. Not ordinary, but giant butterflies. It's exactly a giant butterfly they came across in Chernobyl several years ago, the blue underwing. Basically, this species butterflies are rather big in principle. Their wingspan can reach up to 3 to 3.5 inches. But the one found in Chernobyl had it at about 4 inches, which is comparable to the size of a small bird. Scientists consider that this insect experienced a slight mutation, which led to its increase in size. This surprised scientists. The fact of its presence in the contaminated region was astounding by itself. This butterfly species had never been found there. Maybe that has some meaning. For example, despite the fact that the Chernobyl area is contaminated, nature is becoming cleaner from the presence of many people. So more and more new animal species will be coming there in the future. Butterflies are a good thing, of course, but you must admit that we associate Chernobyl not with these fine insects, but with something terrible. Something like this, for example. This video author states that he came across a real Chernobyl monster nobody had known about. It was standing by some house and looking around as if stalking its victims. It's not fully clear what a creature that was. Some Chernobyl ghost, radioactive mutant, or an animal transformed because of the monstrous radiation dosage. Anyway, the most important thing is that the monster didn't notice the operator and didn't attack him. Speaking of monsters, it's considered that the contaminated region is inhabited by several creatures, inexplicable even by scientists. The Chernobyl demon is one of them. It's also called the Chernobyl black bird. This demon is very reserved, but they still managed to catch it on camera a couple of times. Interestingly, this creature isn't considered radioactive or a mutant. Judging by everything, it had inhabited the Chernobyl MPP even before the disaster. And what's more, many believe exactly this demon was the one to predict the disaster. One of the scientists working on Chernobyl MPP told that days prior to the tragedy, he had seen a huge dark bird with big wings and fiery red eyes. Other scientists remembered about that later, as well as the locals. Was it a coincidence that literally a couple days after the black bird's visit, the accident took place? It's not the end of it. After the disaster, when people started to liquidate the consequences of the accident, they saw a huge 20-foot bird soaring not far from the destroyed reactor. Not many saw and remembered that. People were very concentrated on hard and important work. The bird's been making its presence felt even afterwards. It sometimes comes up in the sky over tourists coming to Chernobyl. In spite of that, it's almost impossible to catch the bird on camera. It's imperceptible and seems to feel when they want to capture footage. This is exactly why scientists haven't still managed to explain who it is. The Chernobyl blackbird is a real riddle, still unclear what it is. Either it was an unknown monster, or just the very ordinary huge bird many take for the local demon involved in all the troubles. As far as I'm concerned, anything is possible. We come back to the animals we all know. For example, dogs. All the dogs you can meet in Chernobyl and Pripyat are wild. These are ancestors of pets left by their owners after the accident and evacuation. Everything's clear. You may have known about that, but are you aware that there are many mutant dogs in Chernobyl? This has been even officially confirmed by scientists. What can you expect from them? What do they look like? Do they attack indiscriminately? In fact, no. Mutations are not always about changes in appearance, but also about inner changes and transformations. The International Collective of Genetics researched the genomes of more than 300 stray dogs within the precincts of the Chernobyl exclusion zone and found out that their DNA structure does not look like the gen structure of other dog breeds. It's exactly why you can consider them mutants, and even unusual ones. Interestingly, the genome structure differs considerably among various dog groups. Those living closer to the plant have different genome than those living more remotely. It's also interesting how these dogs actually survived. More than 35 years have passed, and despite that, the population was preserved. The animals learned how to successfully survive and find food in this region. Food is only half the trouble. How did they manage to reproduce themselves? After all, scientists came to the conclusion that all dogs cross within the same population. In other words, inbreeding takes place. Despite that, puppies are born quite healthy and don't look like one another. It's a real mystery for scientists. They have just a supposition. They think that parents giving birth to puppies are and were exposed to a different degree of radiation. Actually, there are many healthy animals in Chernobyl and Pripyat. It sounds likely to be an exaggeration, more of a myth. Yes, you can really encounter mutants there, animals contaminated by radiation, as well as strange and inexplicable creatures. Anyway, you'll find much more ordinary animals. Animals manage to adapt to local conditions and find food. There are also many animals feeling that the area is becoming cleaner in the course of time. That's why they come to that place more frequently. We saw that at the example of the giant butterfly. With the help of trap cameras and unmediated research, scientists found out that many different animals inhabit Chernobyl and Pripyat, starting from wolves, raccoons, horses, and deer to bison and even bears. They feel well and, judging by everything, will feel even better later on. Without active people's participation in their life and without the presence of many people in their habitat, they feel more comfortable with each year. That's all, guys. Which story touched you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.